recording. You're live.
Okay, we are live. So it is 10:03. We will open our morning workshop with Public Works Intern Director Jeff Hunter and Acting Intern County Engineer Sescarola for a Public Works Road Department update. The first thing the board would like to talk about is maintenance of our radio, 911 radio towers. So we have Emergency Management Director Jeff King in the room. I guess I will start with you to give us your thoughts on the issue, and hopefully we can all work together and come up with solutions. Is that mic working, or pull it a little closer? Kind of.
Yeah, so impromptu coming out of my annual performance eval. Same discussion that we've had year over year is the Department of Emergency Management being left to provide for the maintenance and upkeep of county facilities, i.e. the radio sites. And I mentioned to the board that you guys have been more than helpful in the recent years, but to make something more official, and it's a better way of being able to get those things done and keep me from being in the project management business when that's a public works specialty. Mm-hmm. In the past, I know you were involved when we went to the board. I don't remember what year that was. And Gordy was, yeah, we can take that on, but we need additional resources and so on. And at that point, I was told to contract for the annual maintenance of the generators, HVAC, and that annual maintenance run. But when anything comes up, that needs help, you guys have helped me to your abilities. So that's the discussion.
Thank you, sir. I guess the question the board has is your opinion, your perspective on if you could do part of that work, if you can not do part of that work. Is it your belief that you would have to hire a new person to do that? Things change over time. We have our carpenter guy now, and is there, I don't know, we'll just go from there and let you.
Some of the stuff, like Jeff referred to, we would contract out. We don't like the generator. We contract those. So would that be, it's not that much more difficult to add it to one of our contracts. I mean, it's a few line items in a contract, just add extra sites. Things like that, that's pretty straightforward. HVAC, same thing. His systems aren't quite what the systems are that the county has. Some of them are. We try to build them that way. But, and that was before Jeff's time. Some of those sites were built to use like a Home Depot generator or not a very good HVAC system. So, I would lean on Jeff's contractors for that, because you wouldn't want to spend the money that you'd spend having DivCo drive up there and maintain a generator that's worth, or not DivCo, but Pacific Power. And in 2 trips, you could have bought a new generator for what you paid for that Home Depot special. So yeah, we could do the contracts. That's not a big thing. Some of the stuff we could do, I'd have to get with Jeff and see what the updated list is, and, and talk to the board on, what the thought is. I mean, what direction's a different board? Do you want to upgrade the sites? I mean, what's your long-term thought process? The carpenters can do a lot of the maintenance, but they also build stuff. And some of that stuff would be, ultimately might be better to replace than actually maintain.
Right. So it's issues like that, and we understand that some things will and won't. So in part of our, I think I would say, effort to try to alleviate some workload, things like the fence that keeps getting collapsed. If somebody else was handling that project that was more skilled and knowledgeable about fences, it might go a little farther and then alleviate workload over there so he can get onto some of his other things that are far more important than a fence or a roof or a, so I think that was the direction of the conversation. So that would be my opinion, and I'll ask for my seatmate's opinion, that I think, you know, if you two work together and come up with something and come back and make a presentation, that would be helpful for me. I'll leave it to my seatmates to ask questions or.
I would say most of this comes down to project management. And if you have available project management bandwidth, that would be great to help share the load that might not be at a director level position that we have to do other things. That would be great. But again, that comes down to the list of the priorities and the things that need to be done this year. And if you guys get together, figure out, you know, if some of your PMs can do some work to take some load off, that would be great. If you don't have any bandwidth, well, then that's something we'll have to talk about. But I would say the one thing to not talk about is coming back with a request for an FTE.
No, I was never going to suggest that. No, we would do it. I'm not asking for a new FTE. I want to keep my people busy. That's very important to Seth and I, to keep our people busy. You know, as things slow down in other areas, our people are flexible. You can manage projects. The only thing I ask is, and this isn't a shot at Jeff or anything else, if we do it, I can't have my people working for anybody else. They work for Seth and I, and we would literally, you know, I would work with, you know, I don't really want to do the radio stuff, Jeff. I'll do the facilities maintenance. I really don't have any issues with that. I don't have the expertise in the radios. Jeff is far more versed in that.
And we already have the annual preventative maintenance.
Exactly.
Contract in place for the generators, the HVAC, changing light bulbs, all that stuff. It's been a good contract. When it comes to anything that they find that's additional projects like the siding, exterior, laptop, site, laminating, getting water penetration. That's a whole, that's not my specialty. Makes a law.
And
Right.
yes.
Well, and we're looking at it for also efficiencies and whatnot, because for you to get a contractor or your own employee or whatever to do the siding, you're gonna whip that out in a phone call in 10
Yes.
minutes. He's gonna spend a week on it because he's never had to do it before. You know, so, you know, what can he be doing for the week somewhere else to help that department be successful?
No, I agree. It should sit under Public Works. It just would be, you know, another line item, and we would treat it the same way. It'd just be unless you wanted it separate. I would assume it would just be, you know, how we have our non-capital and our capital list. It would be radio sites. We have dispatch, we have all the buildings under there. It'd just be another line item. And ultimately, we're not going to fix everything the first year anyway. It's just not how we do. You just can't. Nobody can. So I'll get with Jeff, and I think this is something we can do.
Good. I look forward to hearing what you guys' plan is then. With that, thank you, Mr. King. Go back to work and tell everybody down there thank you from me, and I'm sure the board, for doing what they do. And we will continue with the Public Works update. Okay,
We have a few things on your we have one thing on your agenda and a couple public hearings. We have a bid opening for asphalt, liquid asphalt. We're hoping for a good bid. We'll see. We haven't heard one way or the other, so. And then we have the public hearing for the franchise agreement, which I would be surprised. I don't know. I'm not going to say anything. That'd be stupid. But anyway, and then we have a local agency agreement supplement with Applied Archaeological Researches, which is one of our archaeological consultants. And we need to extend their time. I don't think we're adding any dollars to it. No, we're just extending their time to get through the projects that they're doing for us now. And with that, I think I'll turn it over to Seth since he's here this week.
Yeah. construction group is trying to continue their visual ratings of pavement, but they've ran into weather. So in between that, they're helping out with the water line project at the fairgrounds. Road design, we've made a little bit of movement on the federal projects. They reviewed our plans and specs, but they're still waiting on funding approval through headquarters and FHWA. These are taking way longer than they ever have in the past. Usually it's a 6 to 8 week project or process, and we submitted these back in November. So they've made some changes in some of their policies and the documents that they want. One of them actually came back for signature because they didn't like an add date on one of the forms, because they're taking too long. And they've also lost their regional engineer. They just replaced him, so they've had a huge backup. We're still pushing them as best we can. The one project that was waiting, the initial review finally came back, so we'll be getting that paperwork to you guys as well for construction funding approval. And the process for the data collection consultant is ongoing. Jeff said we're opening bids today for liquid asphalt. And design work continues on Sundale and Old 8. We're at the 30% review stage, meaning we're reviewing the alignments and looking at how that's going to impact our stormwater and other environmental items. And then other design and environmental processes are ongoing for a couple upcoming maintenance projects and snowplow turnaround and other little things. So.
What is the road widening project? Which road are we talking?
Bickleton Highway out by Box Springs.
That piece you like so
Yep.
much.
The piece I hear about so much, you mean?
Yes.
The patchwork quilt.
That's a good terminology for it.
Okay, the maintenance crews are reacting to weather. We hear there's a potential for 6 to 8 inches of snow come Friday. I hope that's not the case, but that's what we're hearing, so. I'm hoping that's not it. We're also grading on the east end. We're going to be we burned some tumbleweeds this time of the year. And we'll hopefully put some shoulders on East Road. West End reacting to weather, and we're doing some patching and of course the water line project. Upcoming facilities, we have Mission Glass is scheduled to come back this week to do the last of the punch list items for this building. The HVAC, our person is here today, so there'll be to look at the HVAC system and give us an estimate. So this is an independent estimate of what we've gotten through our architect and the contractor. Not really excited about their costs, so we'll see what our independent guys comes up with. As we talked about the courthouse and Pioneer Center small works contracts are scheduled to open tomorrow, so we'll see where those are. Jailhouse roof, we're still working on design. Courthouse remodel, we're meeting with the courts today with the judge this afternoon at around to finalize the design so we can send it to DHAP. We said the water line construction is moving ahead. We've got, I don't know, a third of the line in. They're hanging sheetrock and doing some other stuff. We talked about the courthouse break room and the radio tower site. Equipment installation bid opening is next week. Other issues, the stinking elevator went down again after we had ThyssenKrupp here. They're scheduled to be back here again this morning to fix the elevator. We can't reset it this time. In the past, we were able to reset it. They put in some new relays, which was the problem last year or the year before last year when we had this happen. So I don't know what they're going to come up with. I'm afraid they're going to say that the brain of the thing needs to be replaced. Hoping that isn't the case, but we'll find out today. We'll keep you abreast to where we're going with that. But we're kind of stuck. We don't have any choice. We have to have an elevator. We finally got getting window washing contractors to actually give us a price until March, because they don't work in the winter and they literally don't work. They won't even give you an estimate. So we got one, and we're getting a second one today. He's scheduled to come in here and actually look at the windows and stuff, but we couldn't get him until March.
Are we looking at this building only? We looking at the courthouse and Pioneer Center too, or what's the game plan?
We're looking at this building, and we'll look at the courthouse, so we'll have separate window washing contracts. We haven't really addressed the Pioneer Center yet.
I haven't heard any complaints down there.
No, this one's got a lot of,
A lot of glass.
yes, I want to ease you into this.
Oh, it's week one, I was thinking, what's the cost of that? Because it's never been looked at during the build process.
And I think that's all we have on the list.
I have one question on your upcoming facilities. Sidewalk, curb and gutter will need to be funded and constructed in 2023. I thought that was expected to be funded out of the dollars for this building, or do we not have any dollars left for the building?
No, Gordy, if you remember, Gordy said there wasn't any dollars. I haven't brought that forward because I have to find out how much the HVAC contract costs. And, it wasn't my project, so I'm trying to get a handle on where we sit on the budget. So I can bring all that forward for you. We also have some options that we'll also bring forward about what sidewalks we do put in and what we don't put in. Because there are some options we can look at to reduce cost.
That brings up kind of my next question. Is part of the budget on this building, we were going to artwork the hallways. Where are we at with that? Or have we checked on that?
I have
Or-
to check on that. I'll admit, I forgot about that. So I will check on the artwork for the building or for the hallways.
Thankfully, it's a very low number.
It is.
So,
Yeah, both of our people that were working on that aren't here anymore.
right. Yeah, we might want to add 3 more to that number of pictures too, by the way. So we'll talk later.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Yeah.
Either of you? No?
Are we doing, I saw there's a roller down there at the bottom of Courtney. Are we doing that, or is the contractor
Contractor's
fixing
doing that,
that?
yes.
Good, okay.
Yes, contractor's fixing that up.
Other than that, I'm good.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
We'll
Keep up
see
the
you.
good work.
See you at 1:30.
And thank you for being open and receptive to the facility maintenance stuff.
That's what we do.
That's a plus.
Well, yeah, Rob said you'll pay for it.
We'll take it out of the IT budget. He's not here. Everybody else is here.
We're gonna start with Courtney, talk slow to get generated.
Morning.
Good morning.
So I'm attending on behalf of adult probation. I have a request, a verbal request for authorization to consider moving our litter crew supervisor from 35 hours a week to 40 hours a week, starting effective April 1st. That would add 2 new duties, which is monitoring, setting up community service sites, and maintaining the records and providing those records to the referring location. That is duties that the current case manager does, and the case manager really should be doing probation, interviewing, and monitoring. Our request for this is to transition smoothly and nicely for the case manager position. There's going to be a upcoming retirement towards the end of the year. Then there'll be a new hire. So eliminating those duties and putting it more where somebody's already kind of doing that, it just seems more efficient. I'm trying to just balance out the duties so that we're not one person's not doing a lot more of the duties in the office than others. This would require a supplemental budget of about $8,563 this year. I do have some documentation.
Thank you.
You're so nice. And then annually, it'll be a little over 11,000 a year to make that change. These duties do not change the job description much. It doesn't require, what do you call it?
Yeah, it wouldn't require reclassification, just moving these two duties to that position. Formerly, there was a position that was the litter crew community service coordinator, and it was at a grade higher, but those duties are a lot different from just this small change. So if duties were to change at a later date, or that position were to be reissued or restarted, then we can address that at that time. But right now, this would just be moving it to a full-time position, full-time benefits, full-time accruals, and the same grade and the same job description with the other two duties added to it.
If you might remember last year, I was trying to get, we have another case manager in the work chart as a position, but we don't have the funding for that. I had requested that. And then it was brought to the attention that there might be some opioid settlement funding to support salaries. It doesn't look like those fundings are as much as we thought it was. So this is kind of our next best option to help alleviate duties and kind of spread them out so that we're not overloaded and overworked.
So I'm going to stay out of most of this discussion, but I would say, can you give us an update on, or for our new staff, or staff, our new elected official, on what changed in your job duties in the last 2 years to cause too many duties for the two people that are currently there?
Absolutely. So I was originally a case manager, myself and the other case manager. Our chief probation officer at that time was also supervising the juvenile department as well. So when he retired, I was the interim chief probation officer. So I took on those duties on top of my full-time caseload as case manager. That included all of the administrative duties as well as a full caseload, because when I moved up into the interim chief probation officer position, there was no alleviation of my caseload, and that still has not changed. And then on top of that, we obtained the litter crew grant. And a supervisor. The supervisor was in the solid waste department. It moved over to ours. Now we are fully managing it as of January 1, managing, writing, maintaining that grant. So my duties is I recently submitted for the grant recently. I'm waiting still to hear back on that for the next biennium. And then just monitoring personnel duties as well as administrative duties, budget, full caseload, you name it. So, and those have not been alleviated. Like our current case manager, he takes on as much as he can to help me out, and I have a great set of staff willing to help out where they can, when they can, and I'm very thankful for that. Being a full-time parent and full-time employee and all these duties, it all definitely wears on you, and it's hard. So having that support has been really wonderful. But I also want to make sure that they're not taking on too much too, where they're getting exhausted and burnout and wanting to look elsewhere, because I can't afford to lose them. The county can't afford to lose them in these current positions.
So I want to thank you, Courtney, for everything you've juggled.
Yeah, thank you.
It has been quite something. And for me, this is apples and oranges. And case managers need to be case managers. And the litter crew supervisor is the person that probably needs to do that paperwork and pass those reports and things on. They have that background and they're working with it every day. So it makes sense to me.
Thank you.
Can you talk about the community service work sites and what all is included in this 5 hours?
Sure. So at times, not everybody is eligible or able to do litter crew. Most of the time it's medical conditions. Employment doesn't allow them to take time off to work the days that they're actually doing litter crew. They might have residents outside of the state or significantly farther from our county. With 97 and 14, we get a lot of people who get infractions or criminal charges just passing through, and they might get court ordered to do litter crew or community service in lieu of jail. And so this person would be able to go, okay, can they do litter crew? And if the court had allowed them to do community service instead of litter crew in their residence, this person would be able to help them find a community service site in their area that's authorized or approved. Now that's like a 501c3 status nonprofit agency. It's not somebody that they can't go do community service for an elderly person. They can't go do community service for just any John Doe. We have to fact check it. And that's why the courts really depend on us to monitor that, because if they were to allow that to happen, I mean, anybody could just write down that they did hours, but it really didn't. We're kind of maintaining that record and showing that, yes, they did do those hours. We did verify it with the supervisor at that site. So those hours also are supervised. Those hours are also, we report that as L&I credit too. So some of the sites get kind of, will more often accept them knowing that we paid for the L&I hours for each hours that they do the community service for. So that's why we have to have records from the community service individual or the site at the end of each month so that we can report that and do the billing process for that as well.
And so we pay L&I on them volunteering?
Yes.
And if they're on work crew, are we paying L&I on the time?
For every hour that they do, yes. And we have historically, at least in my history.
And this has historically been done by the case managers?
Well, not necessarily. So it became a fall-in duty so if I go back to beginning of my time in adult probation, when I started out as a clerk 16 years ago, we had a designated litter crew community service coordinator. That person did those duties. Now, then that grant money or that position disbanded, it went away. So then the courts wanted to continue having that option. So then we went, as the clerk, at that time, I took on the community service monitoring because I had the time and the ability to do that. Then Steve Crover was in juvenile department as the juvenile work crew. He then agreed to take on adult crew on top of his juvenile crew and started, and that's when we got back the ecology grant. And then, or maybe it included with his duties at that time in the juvenile department. So then he was running adult and juvenile crew. Then when he moved over into adult probation, he already had that knowledge. So he just continued to do that, maintaining those records for community service. Because I, as the clerk, then moved down up to as a case manager, I was monitoring community service. And then when he came in, he took on those duties. And then now I'm asking it to go back to the litter crew supervisor. That's really where it should be. So it just depended on economy, the money where, and the staffing that we had at the time, flexing our duties with what we had.
So at that time, was the litter crew supervisor being partially funded by county dollars? Do you know that?
When Steve was over at the juvenile department running both the adult, I don't,
When they were doing community service stuff, did we have grants paying for it, or what was paying?
when he was doing the litter crew for both adult and juvenile, he was not doing the community service monitoring. I was as the case manager. I took on,
Before that, the first time.
I believe that was Ben Justman at the time. And partially it was funded by the county, and it was kind of like where it's at now, where there's much money is funded by the grant, and then so much money was funded by the county. And so those hours were being funded by the county. The grant wasn't touching for community service monitoring because it can't.
How many people do you have in the community service section right now that you're watching?
He's got a healthy stack on his desk. I would guesstimate, because I don't have the numbers right now with me, between 30 and 50 individuals. And some of those have deadlines that the court has directed them to have it done by. So we have to be cautious of making sure that those hours get done by a certain time, contacting the individuals, where your hours at, where's your timesheet, fact checking, is the site approved, and then documenting and then getting those reports to the said appropriate person or site.
Do you know, are any of those people, City of White Salmon, City of Bingen, Goldendale
All.
people?
It definitely varies. The courts, it's all of the courts, City of Goldendale, City of White Salmon, City of Bingen, West District Court, and East District Court all order community service or litter crew at times, depending on the cases. Now, whether or not they're actual residents, majority are, I would say, like, it's a good 60-40 split. 60 being probably outside residents. Because if they're in the residence or in the community, they're typically going to do litter crew. We're gonna assign them to litter crew because there should be a pickup site close to them, unless there's medical issues, physical limitations, things of that nature that doesn't allow them to do the litter crew. Makes them kind of a liability to put them on the litter crew. They might need light duty work due to their situations.
Okay, so currently we have a bunch of people doing community service that potentially went through the city municipal court system.
Mhm.
And for a while, the courts were pushing people into community service because we didn't have much going on litter crew, right?
Right.
And so are you expecting that 30 to 50 to go down in the future, or to stay about the same?
It's hard to project because it just depends on the situation. We are definitely making everybody do litter crew if they're absolutely able to do it. Because there should be no excuses, no reason why not to put them on the litter crew. If they just can't because there's a medical documentation that says this person cannot stand for that long, they have health issues, the doctor doesn't want them out on litter crew, then we have no choice but to put them on at a community service site.
If they're from Portland or Yakima or something.
Which at times, sometimes the court though will say, I don't care where you live, you're still coming to Klickitat County to do litter crew, which does happen. We have a gentleman now that has to make the trek. So it just depends on the situation. Sometimes the court or the prosecutor and the case will allow that person to do community service. Majority of the time I'm seeing, they're saying, no, you're doing litter crew. You're not doing community service unless there's extenuating circumstances. And there has been, but also I think we're moving because litter crew has been working very well. I would see a little bit of a decline in community service than litter crew, but it's hard to say. And with summertime, you're going to see a lot more traffic coming through on 9714, which could potentially raise our, amount of community service options. We get a lot of driving while suspended. Notoriously through the courts, they're moving those to infractions with a community service option. I'm seeing that a lot. And so that's where I'm seeing a lot of increase in files for community service. And that is a legislation change I'm seeing, so.
I guess my difficulty is we're coming in April asking for in essence, 11,000 more dollars added to your yearly budget.
Mhm.
The right time to do that is usually during the budgeting process.
Mhm.
Because I've got a lot of other people that are gonna wanna come in and ask for the same thing, more
Sure.
FTE, more everything. You're in an interesting position because we're not getting any money from the cities for all the work that you're doing for them. And if you can get me the information and the numbers on how many people are being gone through the municipal court, being added into this community service part, then we can make the case to the cities that they need to pay their fair share, which can give us some more revenue to help pay for this.
Okay. Have you not received the documentation on the probation caseload that the cities that we're monitoring for the cities?
You sent that to me, it's probably been a few months now, right?
Sure. Every
Can you-
time you ask for it, I send it.
Can you get me that updated information? We're starting that conversation again.
Okay.
And then also if you can, this stuff, because I don't think the community service ever was involved in that. How many numbers of community
I
service
have,
people?
those are included in that data.
Is it just part of the probation side or is it called out on its own?
Those numbers that I provided included the community service, litter crew, and probation cases. All of what our office monitors based on
Was it called out specifically though?
not specifically, I
Can you do
can
that?
separate it for you.
That would be great.
Okay.
Anything I can have for the leverage in the conversation with the cities?
And when might that next conversation happen so I can make sure I get that in a timely
Hopefully
manner?
next week.
Next week? Wonderful, I can get that for you.
Thank you.
We need clarification, or no?
Yes, so would you like me to come back next week for
You can
an
just-
update
You can
or?
just get that to me.
Okay.
So that I can, and then I'll reach out to you, and then if I have any questions, and then that'll help with the conversations with the city at the negotiations.
Okay,
So are you a yes or a no?
I'm right now, I would like to have the conversations with the city before making a decision.
I'm
I'd
a,
also like to hear from my finance manager on budget and how this is going to impact the budget and. I'd like
Well,
to
and I
mull
know
it
you-
over on top of it.
and I know you had mentioned that budgeting time would have been the appropriate request time. And like I remind you, I did ask for a case manager at that point in time because that's what was really needed. And then the option was to do opioid funding, look at the opioid funding. I did that. That funding didn't come through. So this is now, I'm like, now this is the next option. So that's why I'm here today.
Right. And so if I gave you a choice between the 5 hours here or a new case manager, which would you pick?
Well, I would definitely ask for a new case manager so I alleviate my duties. But if that's not an option,
So that's why I want to be able to take this and have the negotiations.
Understood.
with
Thank
the
you.
Cities before making a decision and then saying, sorry, we gave you this, now you're not getting a new case manager.
understood. Thank you for that clarification.
I'm a little bit worried about, for me, the water kind of being muddied with the idea that we didn't ask for it during budget time, but yet this was all an evolving situation with the changes in the litter crew and everything, and then that position being developed, that in my mind, we should have maybe thought this through a little further for that, the duties and what that person was doing at that time, and have it added in there rather than put this over in a different bucket. And we have a case manager doing incredibly different work that's still having to take on those duties. And I know Jake wants to look at those numbers, and I'd like to know if Jen has any input today towards that at all, because I'm worried about how long will this conversation take with the cities. We could become entrenched in negotiation with the cities again and not move forward and put these positions where they need to be, in my mind. I don't want to see it languish any further where caseworkers have the burden of something that should have been over with the litter crew anyhow. Yes, Jen. Well, if you, no? Yeah, okay. Okay. Sure. Okay.
None of this is added into that, so I would have to go back in.
Okay.
Look at all of that before I.
Okay, that's perfect. And I agree, Jake. I don't want to set up a situation where everybody thinks now they can come ask for a change after budget time. But I think this was kind of a error in the beginning, and maybe it's a correction at this time. And would it hurt to just, in my mind, correct this and get those case workers working on the technical things that they work on and take this burden off of them? Would it hurt to just continue, allow it, and then continue? Can we fill that gap with the cities whenever you get those negotiations done with them? Would that be a possibility?
I think that a lot of that depends on how those negotiations go and how much
That's what
funds
I'm
that
saying.
raises. So I know we've been asking you, how are your probation numbers doing? Are they going up or down, or are you?
Right now, they're the numbers are steady. They're more complex, very complex. I have a substantial amount of mental health clients that I have zero services for. That puts a humongous burden on myself and the case manager to try to maintain compliance and when there's zero help in the community.
Trying to fix that too.
Thank you. I've reached out to private therapists. They don't want to take state insurance, which is the majority of my clients. It seems like it's a 2-year wait to get reimbursed, is what I'm hearing. So there's any way for the state to change that option, I don't know. That would help tremendously. But I have 2 individuals right now that had I been able to get them services, they would not be in jail for felony charges right now. I strongly believe that. So.
If I could add to the person that is having the upcoming retirement is a longtime employee, and the odds of a new person coming into that position would be a huge budget savings, because that person would not be getting longevity. That person would be coming in at steps 1 or 2. And so that could be a cost savings as well during that transition that would help some of the budget impact.
There will be a significant vacation
Payout.
in October, so offset some of that savings.
Are you hoping to hire somebody new to work underneath this person for a while before they retire?
I'm hoping so. I know I have mentioned that before as potentially having that new person hired so that they have 3 months of training by Steve, by the case manager, and kind of work along with him and myself, so that I'm not being left with a the full caseload of the department for the whole county and hiring and training somebody new. That would just be, I could see a huge liability and mess. Because I can't imagine, my memory is not as good as it used to be. So having to document the data, that is very time consuming.
Courtney and I did talk about cost savings. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a good chance that you'll need a supplemental to cover the vacation cash out anyway. So this, you may want a week to find out what that overall cost will be, if we can estimate it based on the
Okay.
retirement date. So this might just be in addition to the supplemental you're already gonna have to do potentially.
Well,
But we don't know.
we also have to look, if we're looking to hire someone 3 months before August, we're gonna be, starting that process pretty shortly. And was that baked into the budget either?
No, because I didn't know he was planning on retiring till after the budget was done.
Done. Right.
I wasn't aware. I knew he would talked about it, but he hadn't made a decision yet.
But Casey's right, there's savings next year. Significant, starting somebody potentially at a much lower step.
Okay, so maybe a good idea would be to come back next week with all the budget numbers of what the actual cost is gonna be for the department on the supplemental. If we do hire somebody 3 months early
Okay,
for training and everything else. The payout, what that's gonna look like. And if we include this in it, or if this is something that the new trainee is can manage for a little while we work on negotiations and the costs associated with this department.
okay,
And a supplemental for retirement is not unique to highway department.
yeah.
They're unknown and we just never know. Rarely never know exactly.
I don't have a problem. I just want to see the numbers in the picture. Hard for me to say yes when something's first brought up in front.
I understand.
Good, I'm good with hearing
Anything
numbers
further on
next
this
week.
issue?
Okay,
I hear nothing further. So, yeah,
okay, thank you.
thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good morning, commissioners. So I think the next thing that Casey wants to talk about before we update you on where we're at in some of our goals is something we've talked to you about before, but we're trying to keep you informed as we learn things.
Just kind of a graph of the impact of the DOL overtime threshold through 2028. And you'll see the yellow are the grades and steps that would be affected as of January 1st, 2024. So this is just kind of continuing the conversation, just giving you guys a little bit of a heads up on what the possibilities are, if they move forward with this, and how it's going to impact some of our exempt employees moving into non-exempt.
So what we don't know is if one step, like 71, in a grade is covered by this change in the salary test for exempt, is the whole grade included? That's yet to be determined. So worst case scenario, everything that's in purple, pink, green, or yellow could all be hourly employees. So your directors could, if in fact one step creates the scenario where the entire grade is considered non-exempt, then everybody will be hourly. Now, some will argue there's no change, salary figured hourly, salary figured salary. But as we know, working any amount of time off the clock carries huge potential liabilities. So people who have been working, and a lot of your salary folks work 40, 50, 60 hours a week.
Yes, they do.
Won't be able to do that. They won't be able to do that. because it'll occur overtime, and overtime at hourly rate at somebody at grade 76 is very expensive. So it'll be a cultural change, a mindset change, and a management that could be challenging to manage. So that's where the cost would come in, because people cannot work off the clock, period. And so, and that's, will be hard for some folks who put in long weeks, have a lot to do, and, you know, trying to figure out how to get it done in a 40-hour week. So worst case scenario, but that's why we keep bringing it to your attention.
When will we have an answer on whether it's midpoint of it or the first step or what it is?
I can look into that.
Really gonna have to come from the state, guidance from the state and the feds. It's just one of the many unanswered
No
questions.
AGO's opinion yet out on it?
We'll check into it more, but we haven't seen anything yet. But, you know, this was gonna happen in the prior the 2 administrations ago, and then the feds had changed, and then they dropped it. Now another administration's in, and they've changed the salary threshold again. So we'll see where it winds up.
So I guess what we need is for 2024, how many employees are going to be affected?
16.
That's it?
Mhm.
There's only 16 people, step 71 through 67?
Well, there's several people in grade 71, but if we get answers to where it doesn't affect the whole grade, then nobody in grade 71 would be affected, because there is no one at step 1 right now. And this is if there's no changes to our salaries as of 2024.
So it's either no one or everyone in 71. depending
Yeah,
on what-
and that would include an additional,
Or isn't it, don't they
10.
usually say base?
so there would be,
We had this conversation back when it first came, was it 2017, 2019? And I thought it was like if it was base, which is step 1.
Yeah, but that was a different administration, so we don't know.
Oh, okay.
We don't know.
A law change, or is that just?
Well, when they raise this, how they interpret it.
So 2024, it's 17 employees?
16. If you include grade 71, it would be 24.
24 with.
There are a couple employees in grade 70 that would fall under the professional license section, and so it would not apply to them because of their nursing license, I think, so.
Remember, there's different exempt,
Right.
management, administration, professional, also one for IT.
24
And
to
salary
71.
is the base test.
So when we look at 25 and it goes to 73, how many is that?
I don't have the numbers for grade 73. I only have up to 71, but we have, as of right now, 1, 2, 3, 5 in grade 72 and another 3 in grade 73.
3 and
So
70.
an additional 8 up to grade 73. So that would
Okay.
be 33.
Are any directors in 72 or 73?
There's 2 directors in 73.
2 and 73.
Mhm. It would be building inspection and emergency management. And it would also affect the adult probation chief probation officer.
And we'll just letting you know what we know when we know it, and we'll keep tracking it, and especially as we get closer to the budget time, July, August. So, any questions about that?
No.
So just part of what we're trying to do each update is updates on the goals we gave you last, the beginning of the year. So Casey's working on the NeoGov performance. I know she's been having a lot of meetings, so.
Yeah, we are doing weekly updates. I am doing weekly conference calls and webinars with them. We have our templates created for all 3 different evaluations. And so I think the end of this week and beginning of next week, we'll start testing it in the software and figure out what I like and don't like and what's going to work for us and not work for us. And we're on track for rolling out in May. So.
And LinkedIn Recruiter, as I mentioned last month, hope to get to that to the end of this month. Trying to put together some presentations for the workshop on the 16th, and then should be able to spend some time on that. Still reviewing and revising the risk management plan. I think you approved travel later this month to go to the first conference for the new insurance carrier. Hope to see what they have and what they can offer up there. Meeting my fellow risk managers from the pool, the new pool we're in. So we're working on flow charting, where the claims come in and the process, and the PA and I are working on coordinating and how we coordinate that information in the process, and which claims go where. So that's an ongoing. New goal since last month is the vehicle fleet. We were always had the fleet piece on there. Now we're looking at taxable benefits, and it's kind of expanded the actual use of the commuting, who can use cars when they can use it. So that's taken on quite a much bigger project than I initially thought it was going to be. So that's kind of a new goal we'll be tracking. And then again, I think on the 16th, we actually have most of the morning between IT and solid waste and some other issues. So we're trying to get ready for that. I think that's it for HR.
Yeah,
Oh,
one
go.
more. So there was a communication officer. And so the Department of Emergency Management is looking to get verbal to post for a communication officer position.
So they'd made it past training and they were in probation? Or
They were in probation, in training, and didn't make it.
Very beginning.
Okay, thank you.
Isn't it?
Yep, that's it.
Any
for me.
questions for HR?
Actually, yeah. If we can have I know we can take an hour on this, but a brief discussion on scanning and the need in all departments to scan and record documents so they're not in a box somewhere.
Thank you for bringing that up. Commissioner, I was going to talk about it was when solid waste came up.
Okay.
But it makes sense in HR because how we would potentially
Implement.
So in the solid waste, and Lynn's been reminding me constantly, we have a 40-foot Connex out there full of public records or records for solid waste, the landfill, that didn't get scanned. And we need to find a way to scan those, correct?
I was kind of hoping that, do I need to come up there?
If you're gonna speak, yes.
So, and this is not just solid waste. You go up to the building department and you see boxes
Yeah.
upon boxes upon boxes.
But this is a good example.
Go into the vault down below the courthouse, you'll find boxes upon boxes upon boxes, the attic of Public Works, old building. So,
You had hired, just a second, you had hired folks for the departments moving in here. I think using the fund for this building, I think Gordy got some temps to come in and help building and planning and other departments, solid waste and natural resources, economic development. So some of it was done with those summertime, I think they were positions. But
Yeah, we were allowed to keep her. I hired someone for our two departments, and then the other director took her after I was done with her. We were only, I believe, allowed to keep her until the 1st of October, the 1st of November. But the good news is, I mean, we got to keep her as an employee for the county. She's upstairs in planning now, or in building department, so.
But this solid waste, nor does any other department that I'm aware of to have staff, to have somebody in solid waste scan 50 boxes of material and then scan it so it can be searched and scanned and retained and not just running papers through a scanner, is a fairly tedious process and will take a while.
and the reason why I bring this up is the county did hire, not only did it have the apprentice program, that's kind of what they did to some degree, but the county spent money authorizing temporaries to do scanning. And if my seatmates would look into the amount of dollars the county spent for that versus the percentage of the documents that we have that actually got scanned, you would see, well, you might see what I see, which is not a very good bang for your buck. Where I know there's some pushback in some departments about hiring a scanning company to come do the documents because they want to do it themselves. But I think we're at the point now when, you know, we paid for scanners, we paid for interns to come in and do the work, and wrote a nice check for it. And yet we still have 80% of the documents we had then, and that 80% is going up because nobody's scanning them currently. So to me, we've got to look at this holistically at a county level. We've got to look at an outside vendor that pulls up with a semi truck with people that know what they're doing. And let's get this problem fixed before we have Connex boxes that get waterlogged and destroy all the records.
I did talk to the auditor at your request, and they have quite a number of, I believe, documents they need scanned as well. And I can't recall, sorry, whether she's looking to bring in an outside firm to do the scanning. You know, it's much more than just scanning documents. You've got to have a system. It's got to be, you know, so they can be searched if we need to and then they need to be gone through. Do they even need to be, are they outside of the archive? I mean, are they documents we need to retain, or are they outside of the statutory requirements? So that all needs to be determined as well in some cases, I think. So it's.
I know in the past, in the history of the county, way back when, we did hire outside service, and they're professional. They come in and everybody was allowed to go through that process and get their things scanned or shredded.
So not knowing how many boxes other departments have, I can talk to the auditor again and maybe see if in fact that's what she's thinking, is there a firm she's thinking? So we can determine a potential cost and bring it back to you, you know, to have a firm come in. How do they charge? By the hour, by the ton, by the box, by, you know, and because I have no idea if we're talking 10,000 or 110,000 to do that. I just don't have any concept. So I just know
Well, the
that.
last 100,000 didn't go very far, so neither one of those numbers is as scary to me.
I just know we don't in solid waste have the staff to scan all those documents because they're mostly solid waste documents, correct? Or some.
I don't have any for natural resources and economic, excuse me, development. We finished that before
Gotcha.
we moved
Okay.
because we literally did not have any place to store it. There were over 130 boxes stored at Annex 5 prior to the move. We brought Megan in, and between her doing that physical part of it and Dave and I overseeing what she was doing, I was going off of the retention schedule, and Dave was being Dave. Oh,
Documents?
we can't throw that away. We have to keep that. But, you know, out of the 16 boxes thereabouts that I had set aside to send to Ellensburg to the archive people, 90% of that was rejected. So now when I have my spare time, I'm building a library of some sort for people to be able to access to stuff that is still here.
My main concern with solid waste is I believe many of the original landfill documents are in that trailer.
There's a lot of landfill stuff
We
there.
need to get that out, preserved.
Before it becomes a problem is my worry.
It didn't get looked at until basically we were in the process of moving into this building. And somebody from the old PUD building said, you have to come and get this out of here. And then we ended up with this huge pile of stuff, a couple of pickup loads that a last ditch effort to just put them someplace for storage got sent up to the Connex Public Works Yard. That's how that came about.
Okay.
So if you want,
How do you know that we only got 20% scanned? Did you hear that from an update?
Talking to various directors to give me a ballpark number of how many boxes they had and how many boxes they had when the employees were done with their summertime work, that they still had roughly 80% of the documents.
I'm sure some departments are in a different place than others.
yes, well, absolutely. And I don't want anybody to think, at least from our perspective, it's not neglect. If departments are building up, sometimes we generate paperwork faster than we can handle it, scan it. I came into a department, Randy Post before me, and Casey and Lindsay had HR pretty well. It's,
I don't know, they used to save dead batteries in there.
well,
You probably, okay. I just knew there was a candy bowl full of dead batteries in the vault.
not sure how good a job IT did since they had a Geiger counter and a gas mask.
I have the Geiger counter
But
now.
anyway, so we'll.
It's in my office.
Thank you. So we'll look into that. We'll look into that. And then maybe, and then we have to include the PA in that discussion as far as records retention and all of those.
I say, we're gonna have to
aspects of
reach
it.
out to each official in each department and see what they have and.
Okay, thank you for that. Fiscal department.
I'd just like to add that it is very tedious job and difficult to stand there and scan all day long as an employee. And I believe that the intern program, I would hope that they weren't using them as scanners, because that would.
I think we actually hired people just for that process. In addition to the interns. You want to plug in?
No, I'm gonna share a screen.
Look at you.
If I can catch up, there we go. So just a couple things for my update. The first supplemental is due to me from departments on April 14th. We will go to public hearing in May. I'm also holding a training, a budget training, and incorporating finance training to it. So I have invited the treasurer, the auditor, the system administrator to be a part of that training, to do a real deep dive overview of all county finance, as well as I will be developing a budget tracker template, just like I did for the grant management tracker, just in case any department needs help having some tools to manage their budget, because everybody's responsible for managing their own budget, but there's no set way on how to do that, and everybody's left to their own devices to do that. So I'll provide a template in case they want some help with that. As far as my goals, the grant review process, we talked about that at the workshop. I walked away without 100% clear guidance. One thing left to really determine is the exceptions. I'm getting calls from departments asking if they have to do that process. So really need to get some guidance as to if there are any exceptions, or if we want everybody, all departments, operating under that grant policy.
To me, the exceptions was anything that's a current grant, like the litter grant, because we just talked about that already today, as long as it doesn't change and it's just another 2-year grant thing, I don't think it needs to go back through. If it structurally changes, then it might need to be relooked at. But like most of Jeff King's 911 grants, it's the same grant every year. It's just the next cycle of it, and I don't think we need to, my personal opinion.
Emergency
reinvent the
management
wheel.
grants are ones that they don't even apply for. They're just given to them. So that's almost an appropriation.
And that could be one of the differentiating is if we apply for it, or it's just called a grant, but we get the funding on a regular
Right,
basis.
I guess
from
my
the-
point is I don't think need to spend a bunch of time diving into the weeds on grants that we look at from whatever the health department. And then next year they're applying for the same grant to provide prenatal services, and we're gonna look at the same grant again.
But
you know?
I think the difference is, and Public Works is a good example. I mean, the gas tax, right? The funding for that. And sometimes the state calls things a grant and it's just annual funding. But every department, including public health to a degree, applies for unique funding each year, or potentially could apply for unique public works projects or public health projects that are outside of that normal funding that we get on a regular basis. So I think those are the ones that there's a
That's,
little
that's
uncertainty
just it.
about.
To me, it's something new, not something that we constantly do. So a constant to me is the exception, but that's just me.
Or another option would be to have the working group look at these and bring back a recommendation to the commissioners that have, and they, based on what we're hearing and the team she's going to put together, and they could bring back what they think is an exemption list for the offices and departments and have a discussion about that. I think Jen's looking for process question. How do you want us to determine, or are y'all three in agreement that if it's a regular funding, that there's no need to do it?
If it doesn't come through the working group for just a quick look though, are you assured that something didn't change in it? Maybe everything needs to go through you and then they don't want to overwork or spin their wheels on ones that are standard funding. They would simply say, nope, it's a standard funding and move it to the side. But yes, they at least get a crack at it in case there's something in it.
Fine with that.
I'm still like, it's adding more process to something that every budget, every director does on a regular basis. If it's a new grant that's gonna add cost to the county, it should absolutely go through the work group for a recommendation. It should come to the commissioners because they're gonna be asking for it in their budget, which means they're either gonna have to move money around to get their percentage, or they're gonna have to ask for more money. If it's what they do every year and it's the same amount, it's not a big deal.
And I hear y'all three saying similar things about whether it's new, ongoing, or changed, and ongoing or changed. New. So that give us a starting point.
Yeah, I think so. Clear as mud. I'm kidding.
True.
What else did I have? Something, the other thing I didn't get direction on from the workshop was, who is managing civil service budget? If I just
You are.
refresh, I knew you were gonna say that.
I wasn't gonna look at them, so
All
first
those
one
in
to look at
favor?
them gets it.
You ask the question, you get the response.
Feeling. Okay.
Clear as mud.
Said Public Works, and here's Jeff.
Yes, we'd like to speak on this if we could.
So you want to manage the civil service?
No, I don't want to
budget?
manage the civil service at all. All I care about is our grants. No offense, that just gives us an extra layer. We're required by fate, we have to follow state and federal guidelines here. We don't do any operational grants. So all our stuff is capital based. When we come in here, we tell you guys, we're writing a grant for this. You guys say yes, we tell you what the match is on the percentage. And there is no extra cost. That is how it operates. We could give, the group, go through the process, but whatever they say, no offense to anybody, but we have to follow the state or federal regulations or we don't get the money. That's how public works.
Couldn't the commissioners say they don't want the money?
Yes, they can
Based on-
say, but I always talk to the commissioners.
Well, that's kind of what we're talking about, the formal
But if
process.
I have to fill out a formal process to go through a committee and then report back to a committee, I'm doing the same thing twice. Now I gotta tie Pam up and everybody else filling out extra paperwork.
That's
Just
my
for
worry
clarification,
is-
the committee doesn't make the decision, it's just running the budget numbers, to the
Herein
grant
lies the
to give
challenge.
to the board too.
Herein lies the challenge. We're trying to get to a few different items, but I think we're gonna place so much bureaucracy to try to catch the few things that when we're pushing for efficiencies, I don't know if we go staring at everything, we're gonna have efficiency. Go ahead.
And on another note, the grants Jeff is talking about are going to be out of the road fund, so they're not going to be general purpose dollars, except for that
$500,000 that they received from the landfill, so.
So again, maybe Jeff can make his case and everybody else can to the committee, and this idea didn't generate with us. This idea generated from the commissioners.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to implement what we've been told to implement.
It sounds because Jeff comes in every week and talks to us every week. Not everybody does. In your exemption list, I would put the road fund down as one of them.
Sure.
Will that work, Jeff?
That works. We also, I mean, we write grants for other things, for buildings and grounds, but those are, again, are capital grants. They still follow state and federal regulations. Sometimes we don't get a lot of time frame that we got all of a sudden we have to write a grant. Now, like I said, I meet with the three of them every week. And, you know, I tell them, and I understand what you're trying to do, and I appreciate that. But our grants are one time, you're not gonna start a department, we're not gonna hire anybody. That isn't paid for with that grant to do work, and then they go away.
My other worry is that we use this and end up creating this bureaucracy that you have to go through all these steps, and then we miss out on something because it didn't have time to get through the steps. So one of the exceptions has to be some kind of an emergency protocol where, boom, they can just come in on a Tuesday and state their case and get an emergency decision right here versus losing a grant.
I think that's always an option because Tuesdays is always available. I caution to memorialize that in a policy because they just didn't see it in their email or it got put on the back burner.
Well, yeah, but then I can chew their butt in a review. I don't want to lose the grant because of it.
And again,
Everybody shouldn't be punished because somebody didn't see their
I'm
email.
not saying punishment by any means. I'm just cautioning what to get put in the policy so that all of a sudden all the grants don't actually have to go through the process that you guys wanted in place because it fell under this emergency clause of that policy.
part of the reason the commissioners ask us to do this is because frankly, you were frustrated with people, not Jeff. Nice to see Jeff show up quick. Is departments were coming in and offices and giving you very little time to make a thoughtful decision. And, you know, I just can't imagine they're all emergencies and need to be done right away, though there are some that occur that way. So again, this was all put together at the request of the commissioners, talked about repeatedly to put a more normal process in place. There'll be exceptions for anything we do. Frankly, we don't have to do it at all if you've now changed your minds.
I haven't changed my mind. I just want to make sure that we're not going to miss something because it didn't have the 3 weeks to go through committee.
Right. Well, the folks,
And you guys asked me to do this. I spent an entire month putting all of this together. The outline came from research of various other counties, Washington counties across the state. This is not abnormal work for our industry.
frankly, I think we used Public Works as the reason to have exemptions. And public health, most of their funding is through the state public health and would probably not, you wouldn't probably, though.
Well, and this process
though Aaron
isn't
is gonna
about,
use
this process really isn't about statutory requirements and following those guidelines. It's really about the budget. It's really about what the county is on the hook for, what the match is, are their employees being hired, what's that gonna cost, the cost to the county, as well as the reporting and having that reporting available to you guys on a quarterly basis, in addition to helping the auditors streamline their year-end reporting.
So I guess you've done a lot of work on this. You've put a lot of good faith and effort into it. You've brought me along through the process, and because at first I was the one, I was like, are we just adding more bureaucracy? And I think the answer from here is you've got a good template, you've got a good draft, and we need to get it out to all of the departments. And thank you, Jeff, for your opinion. And we need to hear from those departments so that we can write a finalized draft. If we're all different pieces of this pie, whether it's different, electeds or whatever else. And I hear what you're saying, Jeff. But you're also one of the only people who comes in here every week. And we know more about your department than we do about all the rest of them usually on a regular basis. So is that the direction we're going now, is to get this out to everyone? Have you had a chance to review it?
Yeah. I don't have a problem with the policy. I like the policy. I like the direction. I just want to make sure that one of the exceptions, there's some kind of an emergency in there that they know that they can come before the board on a Tuesday, because if it's not there and then they don't do it, and then we get blamed because they didn't get $100,000 grant to help our citizens, I don't know, mental health or something. They should be able to come to the commissioners to seek emergency approval on a short notice. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, we would assume the same. Offices and departments can always come directly to the commissioners, and these will always be approved by you.
Right.
So,
Yeah, not the peer review team. That is not the purpose of that team. It's just to work the numbers and make sure the grant is graded on a standard rubric.
but again, if we decide ultimately it doesn't work or it's too cumbersome or too bureaucratic and you want us to change it or not do it or implement only in certain cases, ultimately that's your decision. So.
Okay, so the other part of my update, or my status update on my goals, was the budget book and the quarterly reporting. The budget book development got put on the back burner for the first 2 months. The first month, I was working through that grant process. The second month, February, the first 2 weeks of it, I was in ERP demos and working through opioid settlement information, the CPACER research, and the House bill research. Additionally, there's still work being done in 2022 that will impact fund balances. So there's only so far I can go. I have, after the workshop and getting the board's approval, I have emailed out to elected officials and directors to request a blurb of what their department does that they would want presented to the public. What services and programs that they have, what's mandated, what are unfunded mandates. And I believe I sent that out 2 weeks ago. But time has flown for me. I've received 6. So 2 offices, 4 departments at this point in time. So those things are going into this budget book. So that is delaying the process as well. But with that being said, I've been working on.
You need to draft a letter requesting such thing and have it signed by the board and send it to them?
I
Would that
have not
speed it
sent a
up?
follow-up email, so I'm gonna do that first. So I'll just run through really quickly the pages that I have gone through. Now, the design of this, and some of these pages take hours for me. One particular took me all day yesterday for one page. So it's not an easy or quick process by any means. So we have an org chart identifying the officials throughout the county, which are departments, directors, appointed directors versus elected officials. Series of table of contents. Skip over that. This one really is the board for the vision of the budget. The statement that I have made was the commissioner's collective vision for the budget is to continue to build an economically sustainable budget, reducing expenses by improving efficiencies throughout county offices and departments. If that's acceptable to you, I will keep it and move I do need some sort of missions, you know, you guys have talked about various things such as planning and whatnot. So just 3 top level ideas. I would appreciate that if you could email those to me. A history page about the county, the old courthouse, as well as the tribes that were here before. Demographics. Components of the budget, these are all required pages to be in the budget book. Budget development calendar and the process. I kept that the structural gap challenge with some tweaks to the wording in there to get it onto one page. Fund structures. Revenue. The page that took me 8 hours. Been working on this
Can you
one.
go back to that revenues page? Is there a way, or do my teammates see a need to break that down one block further and list revenues received from green energy projects?
I would struggle to actually find that at this point. And this is just a top level budget and brief overview of the revenues collectively.
It's added in the property.
Oh, I know it's there. It's just, I think the general public could look at.
I do not have that easily at my fingertips.
And I don't know if that should be for the budget, or is that for your discussion on other things?
Okay, continue on.
Currently working on this page right now, or this morning. I wanted to break down the revenues received from the landfill, what gets captured in the this general government, because that's the general fund. So I wanted to highlight what that pays for out of the general fund there.
Right, and I guess my example was to do the same thing with the wind energy projects. And since this is an educational document for the public.
This information I have, the other one I don't have easily at my fingertips.
I understand that.
This actually is not done. This is just the layout for the expense, and that is where we are at this point in time. So that's all I have.
Any questions?
No, it looks good. Mhm. A lot of work.
Yes, it is. Might be difficult, the risk of getting hit, but it's an intriguing question about the green energy. I don't know how you'd get the answer, but it's an intriguing question.
So, well, we know how much we get in property tax and whatnot, so it's.
I think Greg has a paper on
They
a
have
page
the
on it.
paper. But doesn't list every year going back 20-year kind of thing like you have with Republic, but.
And that's because my predecessor kept that information and I was able to pull that.
Right, my point is, I think we should be able to access the information if we so chose to do it, to make that an educational piece. Because it is anywhere from $6.5 to $8 million revenue source.
I don't disagree with you. The only reason I have the history of the landfill is because my predecessor had it in a spreadsheet. It's not something I can really.
Do you
dig out.
mean total taxes, or are you talking just to county, road, and general government?
Taxes collected.
Well, then you'd have to figure sales tax and everything else.
Well, you could go dive deep, but you can explain it differently too, and you use the numbers you have. Question on the top 3, our mission examples that you're looking for there? What are some examples that you're looking for?
What's your
there?
goals for this budget year?
Goals and mission different.
Maybe reword it.
I'll not wordsmith here in public. I'll get you something.
Thank you.
In my lifetime, I've spent many hours wordsmithing difference between a goal and a vision and a task and a.
I'm not sure, yeah.
I'll try to remember to come up with something, but if I don't, yell at me.
I don't have anything else. Thank you,
Thank
Jen.
you.
You do great work.
All right, Randy? You're still here? You had time to run.
Yeah, we're way over time too.
And
I can save you some time.
we're just cutting into your lunch, aren't we?
I know.
Our lunch, yeah.
Okay, so what I have been working on, network redesign has been a big one. And I have written the RFP, and I think it is on your consent agenda for next week to give me permission to publish. And yeah, so next Tuesday, there is a cybersecurity grant that the federal government is putting out. Basically, the feds are putting it out. They have kicked it down to the state to administer. I just got an email, as a matter of fact, I think it was yesterday, from the state saying that they will be ready to start accepting applications by the 30th of June. And that cybersecurity grant coincides with the RFP to redesign the network. One of the things that I saw in the documentation of this that I received from the cybersecurity grant is the principle of security by design, which is pretty much right up the alley of what I'm trying to do with this redesign. I think I've told you before, the redesign, or the network, the current network configuration was designed about 10 years ago. The county's needs have changed. The county's, processes have changed. We went through a pandemic. All of this stuff, it's time for a redesign. Okay.
A visual of that is the board chair got a tour of one of the server rooms, and sometimes it can be a visual of the network.
Yes. Let's see. The next Thursday, the 16th, we are going to have a workshop in this room with you guys on the
And hopefully others.
And hopefully others, yeah. So next Thursday, we're going to have a workshop for an e-government. We're going to start talking about e-government. We're going to start trying to figure out what e-government means to Klickitat County. At this point in time, on next Thursday, I'm going to be looking for input from you guys and hopefully other department heads.
And elected officials.
And elected officials, yes, absolutely. To find out what exactly is the expectations for the e-government website. Because basically what we have now, the website that we have now is informational. It's really good information. There's a couple of processes that I think is the public can interact with, but for the most part, most of the processes that we have are simply links to state websites. Like, for example, vehicle licensing. You know, you can go to Klickitat County Auditor's Office and you can find a link to click on to relicense your vehicle, but then that takes you to the state site and you do it there. There are a lot of services that we can provide, that we could interact with the public with. So at this point in time, I want to get a really clear idea of what your expectations are.
Plus, we're much like the grant process. I suspect there'll be different opinions on different departments and offices of what e-government means to them, what it could mean to them, what they'd like to see. So, and then ultimately, of course, what the commissioners would like to see so that IT can have some plan as to how to put this together and we're not, you know,
Well, and there's two steps. There's setting it up, and then there's maintaining it. There's day one and there's day two. And we also need a plan for how we're gonna maintain this after the initial build out has been put in place.
and we don't want the offices or the departments to think that IT has a predetermined idea of what e-government should be. I think
So that's the kicker. They've all been invited to the workshop, right?
it's on the agenda.
It's on the
Can
agenda.
we send an email just to make sure that we extended the olive branch to?
So when you say we, do you mean me?
I'll do it. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Somebody? Directors and electeds, if they want to show up, that's fine, but at least they can say they were invited.
Yes.
Yes, good idea.
Yes, I have had a few conversations with different people around the county. And then the next thing that I'm working on is developing a structure that by which we can hire people in at the beginning level and then train them up through our process. Where that is right now is I've written the job descriptions. They're currently with Casey, and she's putting them through her process. That's where that is. Let's see, annual PC replacement. I think first order has been done. We've ordered 18 computers, and about half of those, about 9 or 10 of them have been put out. So we're about 10 PCs into the 30 for the year to replace. Let me see, for the server replacements, we're trying to get our arms around the operating systems for those servers, because these things are expensive, and we're trying to work out something to get the most bang for the buck for because we still have some servers that we need to update the operating systems on, and then we need to buy new servers. So the question right there is do we buy a server with the operating system already on it, or do we buy the hardware and then buy the software and then put it on, which is probably going to be the way we're going to go with that. We have 16 virtual machines that are running Windows Server 2012 R2. That's end of life in October. I think it's October 1st. That's end of life. So we have to have something in place by. We have to have the upgrades done before that.
Anything else? Nope. Any questions for IT?
When upgrading those servers, are you looking at, do we have a chance to make that an online server rather than having it all ourselves? Are you looking into that?
You mean having it hosted?
Hosted, yes.
No, I haven't looked into that yet.
Okay, is that on the to-do thing? Because sometimes hosting can be cheaper than rebuilding our servers every 5 years.
I can certainly put it on the list.
Thank you. I mean, there's a reason people are doing virtual hosting in a lot of instances, and going that direction, I'm assuming it might be cheaper.
Even if it's not cheaper, sometimes it's more efficient.
It's more efficient because yes, and that is entirely possible because you're handing over at least the core, the hardware and the operating system for someone else to maintain. So yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Randy.
Especially because you've got those virtual servers too, right? And look into it, all of them, and see where that pencils and doesn't pencil. Efficiency and savings, please.
Yes. Well,
Was that or and?
yeah.
And or efficiency and savings?
Get what you can get.
I heard and.
Dang it. Okay.
Well, you know, IT is a value-added expense.
You better
And-
run.
Yeah.
You know you're cutting into his lunch, right?
I'm out of here.
I
Thanks,
went to
Randy.
the Snickers bar, but he broke my door, so I
I
can't.
knew I was gonna get blamed for that. Actually, it's a security feature. The door falls
Yeah.
off. It's who's ever stealing the candy bars. Okay, solid waste. Lynn? Mackenzie? We do have an executive session after this, so I think we can do this fairly quickly. Okay. So have all of you met Mackenzie?
I haven't.
Mackenzie is our new community engagement, it's a long title, program coordinator,
Yes.
solid waste.
Yep.
So she's been on the job, and I just wanted her to give you kind of an update of what she's been working on and what she's, as she took on this new task.
So my first kind of big order of business was maintaining the grants that have kind of not been neglected, but just needed some touch-ups. And I've been working with Michelle in ecology to make sure those are being maintained and everything's been turned in. And then we apply for the next cycle of the ecology grants coming up here in April. So getting kind of prepped for that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that at the workshop coming up. And then the community cleanups, I've been working with Republic to make sure everybody is getting their bins and services. And then I've got some meetings coming up with people organizing those so that we're all on the same page and everybody's getting what they want and hurting all those cats.
So do you have me on that list? Because I needed to contact you to set up a meeting for ours, so.
I do.
You're on it now.
What a good time to make sure I'm on the list.
Sure, you're on the
Yes.
list. I see you right down there.
Yep, Goldendale, Saturday, June 3rd.
Okay.
Dan Christopher,
Yeah.
you're on there.
We need to start having the discussions anyway, so.
Because Lynn started many of those discussions, and Joe's also
Yeah.
reached out to these events to, especially to make sure we have containers for all of them. So now we're doing the Stormin and Norman as things are shifting over.
And
to
I
Mackenzie.
appreciate you all working together and the work Lynn put into it.
And what we need to determine now is, you know, as Lynn can tell you, the expectations from the different communities on what solid waste can do and pay for are different. And so we're trying to determine available funds and, you know, what we can do and what we can't do and what their expectations are, in addition to the dumpsters, those kind of things. So good events are just, can be complicated. So, Lynn, anything to add to that?
Not really, other than I'm just really thrilled to have Mackenzie on board.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we're still a little shy on personnel down there at that end of the hall, so she's really taken a lot off my plate. I really appreciate the job she's doing.
Lynn and I jumped in the deep end of the pool and we had to learn about all this stuff in the beginning, and Lynn's done a great job. So, and Michelle at the ecology's been a big help too. And the reason we scheduled a March 16th workshop is because in April we'll be applying for a 2-year funding cycle for LaSWIFA grants. And we really need to understand what the commissioners like and don't like, and because we do have some ability, and Mackenzie's working on, Michelle, with that, of where we focus our proposals and our goals, and we don't want to do that without knowing where you want us to go. So hopefully on the 16th, we can get a better understanding from you on what's worked, what's not worked, what we've done, or what you'd like us to do. So, any questions for Solid Lane? Anything to add to the? Did we cover everything on our list?
His water jam is.
Water jam. Yeah.
So we have water jam coming up. It was an event that was done pre-COVID and then they weren't able to do it. It's 400 kids over 2 days coming down to the Spring Creek Fish Hatchery and learning about recycling and water safety and a bunch of other kind of environmental based life skills. And so my role there would be to set up some kind of booth or educational tool to teach these 2nd to 5th graders about recycling. And that's covered by the LaSWIFA grant.
So you're not hosting Water Jam, you're just a participant in Water Jam.
And the LaSWIFA grant pays for the local school's transportation to the event.
Oh, I see.
So we're not the main host, but we're a sponsor.
Got it.
Key sponsor. Any questions? Solid waste. I think Joe will be joining us on the 16th too. So if you have any questions for coach compliance or landfill code compliance officer. He should be here on the 16th as well, so,
Perfect, thank you.
all right, thank you. And I'll have Casey rejoin me and we'll go into executive session under G, I believe Lee told me, on the agenda.
Okay, how long?
Oh, 10 minutes.
10 minutes. All right, with that, we'll go into executive session in accordance with RCW 42.30.110, Pren 1, Pren G, to review the performance, discipline, and qualifications of a public employee for 10 minutes.
Please ask everyone to get off.
Oh, yes, ma'am. Everyone on Zoom, please log off, and we will see you back at 1 o'clock.